From the Blue Angels to the USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Michigan, the Navy is a global force capable of winning wars and limiting aggressions made toward the United States. This group of trained and well-equipped naval troops and officers is meant to protect and win all wars, except it fails in one major conflict, the progressive issue of gender equality.
It was the year 1948 when the Women's Armed Services Integration Act was passed, allowing females to serve as regular members in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. Later on, in the 1970s, women began attending military academies and becoming fully immersed in this workforce.
In particular, the Navy included tens of thousands of women in their forces in the late 1900s. This environment was filled with mostly men who demonstrated superiority over female naval officials, and in ways that are disgraceful and undeniably repulsive.
I don't know exactly how these women are going to handle this. I think this should be a man's war here.
In 1991, naval troops had returned from the Persian Gulf War that had ended earlier that year. By February, about 3,700 naval women were in the Persian Gulf, who were excluded from occupations in this combat military.
On the weekend of September 5th to September 9th, 1991, around 4,000 U.S. naval officers traveled to the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel for their annual Tailhook convention.
Throughout the days of the convention, officers were celebrated for their efforts and achievements of the Gulf War.
But this friendly and welcoming environment soon turned into a night of terror for the female naval officers.
On the third floor of the hotel, an after-party was held, where drunk male officers demonstrated inappropriate exposure of their genitals and sexually harassed women as they joined in on the festivities of the night. One man was seen wearing a shirt that states, "Women are property," and another man wearing a shirt stating, "I survived the third floor."
Throughout the night, 83 women and 7 men were sexually assaulted by drunk male naval officers and some women against their will.
The Gauntlet, a hallway leading to hotel suites, was the location where many male naval officers congregated and surrounded women to assault them and make inappropriate comments towards them. Victims have also stated that they were harassed in hotel suites.
These unfortunate and haunting events led to many debates surrounding the treatment of women in the military and the need for diplomacy to influence a change in this workforce.
The scandal impacted and changed the military culture and work culture for women. Whilst this injustice caused pain and trauma for these women affected, it ultimately resulted in the spreading of awareness surrounding sexual harassment in the workforce, the need for inclusivity between women and men in all fields, and furthermore, a cultural reform in the military.
One woman in particular, former Lieutenant Paula Coughlin, a naval aviator for the United States Navy, was a victim of these sexual assaults that occurred at the Tailhook Convention.
Though she escaped and fought back against her abusers, Coughlin was told by her boss, Admiral John Schneider, "That's what you get when you go down a hallway full of drunk naval officers."
Following the scandal, the Pentagon reported that 160 Top Gun officers were involved, but none were criminally prosecuted.
Paula Coughlin quit and immediately began to make efforts to stand up against her previous colleagues and senior officers in the Navy. In her first appearances on national television, with the Washington Post and ABC News, in full uniform, in June of 1992, Coughlin describes her experiences on this tragic night.
There were hands down my blouse. At one point, when I dropped to the floor and I was biting the man who had his hands in my blouse, people were grabbing me, trying to pull my panties off, trying to yank my skirt.
This was the first time the public had heard of this event, and not long after, it made headlines on top news stations. Her words struck America and gave women the voice they had been longing for.
Her words and accusations led to the resignation of the Secretary of the Navy, Henry Lawrence Garrett III, and a major reform in the military.
Not only did her inspirational acts and bravery pave the way for investigation to be made, but opportunities arose for Coughlin to represent herself and other women serving in the workforce.
She was invited to have tea with President Bush and the First Lady, where they assured her that the Department of Defense's investigation would accuse the aviators who assaulted her and many other women naval officers on that haunting weekend.
Sexual assault in the workforce was publicized and discussed in result to this national scandal. Finally, women were given ample opportunity in the military, and most importantly, were being heard by members of Congress and the citizens of our country.
One publicized case includes the trial of Admiral Frank B. Kelso, the Navy's former top admiral and chief of naval operations.
For 6 long hours, the Senate debated on taking away 2 of his stars. In return, women could gain the justice that they deserved.
However, a quietly arranged deal made months prior called for Kelso to step down from his position in exchange for the Pentagon's civilian leadership support and full pension.
Statement, I have requested to retire from the Navy as of 30 April. I made this decision because I clearly become the lightning rod for Tailhook, and I believe it's in the best interest of the Navy that if I proceed on and retire and we can get on with this business.
8 female senators of different political parties came together on the Senate floor to argue that he should only get 2 stars and a smaller pension, even though the Senate voted 54 to 43.
Senators were angrily opposing the woman pushing to punish him because they thought that women were trying to, quote, punish him as a symbol of misconduct by other Navy officers, as Senator Ted Stevens said.
The goal of the women in the Senate was to send a message of disapproval and a message of awareness about sexual abuse that takes place in the U.S. military.
After various rebuttals, President Clinton officially refused to take away any of Kelso's stars. The public was highly opposed to the president's final decision and to the outcome of the case. Many women and men began to think differently about the trust in which the Navy once had, and suspicions around treatment of women in the military arose.
Although the women did not win this case, it introduced the public to the serious consequences of sexual assault and spread awareness throughout the country. The Pentagon soon lifted many of the restrictions on the types of jobs women could have in the military after frequent debate. The opportunity to gain significant roles in the military arose for many women. For example, Sarah Joyner became the first woman to command a FA-18 fighter squadron as an air wing commander, and Nora Tyson was the first woman to command a carrier strike group.
And when I came in the Navy, I was commissioned in 1979. It was not an option for women to go to carriers at all. And I feel very fortunate. I think, again, that the timing was such that, you know, I could be the first one, and somebody had to be the first one, and so I'm sure there will be many more to follow.
Before the Tailhook scandal, women were not given jobs such as driving tanks, firing mortars, and commanding army units in war zones. However, with the need for inclusivity that was perpetrated by Tailhook, women were able to play a key role in their work fields, creating an increase of equality between men and women.
Additionally, with this spread of equality amongst women and men in the military, programs and new restrictions were implemented to reform the culture in this workforce.
On January 6, 1993, the Navy established regulations for preventing sexual assault.
These included training, education, and a system that records sexual harassment incidents. Navy officers were tested to see if their behavior constitutes sexual harassment, called reasonable person standard.
Due to the involvement of alcohol in the events of the Tailhook scandal, the Navy decided to ban the consumption of alcohol, creating a less hostile environment for the members.
Admiral Kelso stated that the Navy's reputation had been tarnished, and he planned to fix it by enforcing a zero-tolerance policy, stating that anyone who assaults someone will be separated, less serious cases will get disciplinary action, and repeated offenders will be discharged. The Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Services, founded in 1951, assisted in this process of spreading awareness of sexual assault. Members include civilian men and women who are chosen by the Secretary of Defense to offer their own opinions on serious matters of women's roles and rights in this field. Women felt as though they were powerless, defenseless, and unheard by the ones who were meant to protect, following this fearful weekend.
Paula Coughlin once said to a reporter that she wanted to, quote, slip into obscurity. As time developed, women no longer hid from their trauma, they faced it head-on. Paula Coughlin took on the courage to present herself in the world and fight for what was right.
Debate and diplomacy surrounding the events of the Tailhook scandal ignited discussions about a novelty during that time period: sexual assault in the military. Because of the dialogue created in response to this scandal, court cases and actions taken by powerful leaders like Paula Coughlin have left a lasting impact on women empowerment.
Discussion is the beginning of change. Change started then, it starts today, and it starts tomorrow. Will you join the movement of change, or will you be a bystander?